Good afternoon, dear Chairman and members of an International Scientific Committee. To your attention, it's a presentation on a theme, an algorithm clusters and residents of special economic zones interaction. On this slide, you can see the content of presentation, the current status of special economic zones in Russia. The Council Chamber of the Russian Federation does not recognize the special economic zone effectiveness as a locomotive of economic development. The main reasons for the CES function in efficiency are unfair use of preferences by CES residents, production of standard products, a small share of exports. The above mentioned reasons lead to not enough CES infrastructure using created at the expense of state budgets. The author's view on a problem of inefficiency of special economic zones. Cluster association could become a mechanism that pulls special economic zones out of the crisis. The clusters and CES interaction prospects have been studied by many scientists, many of whom have proposed various methods for their development and integration. The purpose of scientific research. The purpose of the scientific research is to develop an algorithm for the interaction of ICS clusters and CES residents engaged in the construction sector. On the slide, you can see the tasks that we have to do to develop an algorithm. To develop an algorithm for the interaction of ICS clusters and CES residents employed in the construction industry, the following research methods were used: theoretical analysis, systematization, synthesis, expert assessment, measurement. Systematization of CES employed in the ICS. The authors have developed a selection methods for the investment and construction sector clusters and special economic zones employed in the ICS. At the first step, of the research process, all special economic zones existing were systematized and identified which are engaged in the investment and construction sector. At the second step, construction clusters were considered which operate in the same regions where the CES from previous table are localized. At the first step, clusters and special economic zones of the same geographical localization were correlated since it's one of the basic conditions for the clusters and prepare possible association formation. Let's form the purposes of the interaction between the ICS clusters and CES residents. For ICS clusters, next purposes were determined. You can see them on the slide. On the right part of the slide, you can see the purposes of interaction of the CES. Establishing characteristics and metrics for assessing interaction. At the fifth step of scientific research, characteristics and indicator for assessing interaction were established for the possibility of implementing and investment project and synergistic effect from the inclusion of a CES resident in the ICS cluster. To evaluate the synergistic effect of the inclusion into a cluster as resident, the questionnaire method and expert assessment in professional environment were used. You can see that for each characteristic, the authors of the article develop assessment criteria. An example questionnaire, survey, and expert assessment for the synergistic effect. Experts for each criterion determine the level importance so that the sum of the importance for all criteria was 100%. At the final step, the results are checked and chosen direction of interaction between the CES and ICS cluster is selected. You can see on the slide the approbation of developed by the author's method of interaction. For the example used the interaction between Acotech cluster and special economic zone Uzlovaya. The results of an assessment for investment attractiveness special economic zones related with investment and construction sector. On this slide, you can see the developed algorithm classes and resident of special economic zones interaction. The authors come to the conclusion that the prospects for the special economic zones development as a tool for attract investment lie in interaction with clusters that will take on part of the financial risks while having the opportunity to strengthen their competitiveness. Thank you for attention.